For me, my birthday, this was meant to be the best day of the year. Everything I had planned was painstakingly perfect. A little celebration with close friends and relatives, delicious food, music, and an opportunity to relax. I had no idea that day would mark a turning point in my life, the day I discovered the ultimate treachery. That morning, I woke up with great enthusiasm. Sarah, my wife, has been quite helpful in guiding me in party planning. For weeks, she had been rushing about, planning decor, food, and even personally creating the invites. She seemed to actually want to make my day memorable. Kevin, my closest buddy, also participated extensively. For years, he had been my rock, the brother I never had. Furthermore, he was my go-to consultant. He had assured Sarah and me of assistance with the setup. Having these two amazing persons in my life makes me very appreciative. The evening got off to exactly right. Under the cozy glow of string lights, friends and relatives gathered in the garden giggled and relaxed. Kevin and Sarah appeared to be having a fantastic time as well, laughing and light-hearted, joking about as usual. I considered myself to be really lucky. But as the evening went on, I started to see things I cannot overlook. Every time I turned to check on Sarah and Kevin, they seemed just too close, a bit too comfortable next to one another. Her laughter at his jokes would seem different, more personal. I dismissed it immediately, thinking myself I was simply paranoid. Then arrived the time to chill my spine. With her fingers just brushing Kevin's arm, Sarah moved down to murmur something in his ear. He grinned, and they both turned to face me as though they were divulging some secret. My belly turned around. Was I seeing things as they seemed? Still uncomfortable, I attempted to concentrate on my visitors and the celebrations. But the germ of uncertainty had been sown and developed minute by minute. Nothing about their relationships appeared benign now. It was as though I was seeing the two of them through another prism. My anxiousness peaked when the celebration ended and visitors started to depart. Out of my brain, I couldn't picture Sarah and Kevin's proximity. Was there anything more going on, or were they simply being really friendly? I lie in bed that evening, not able to fall asleep. Fast sleeping, Sarah was next to me, as though nothing had occurred. My head whirled with inquiries. I had always trusted her fully, and Kevin had been my most devoted friend. But I couldn't ignore the fissures developing in the basis of those connections anymore. Am I crazed? Over and over, I questioned myself. Deep down, though, I sensed something wasn't right. Whether or not I was ready for it, the ideal image of my life was beginning to fall apart, and the truth was just waiting to show itself. The days after the celebration passed in a haze of discomfort. The sensation that something was strange persisted. Every exchange between Sarah and Kevin operated in my mind on a loop, each moment more dubious than the next. I wanted responses, but I wasn't sure where to start without coming out as paranoid. One evening then, I discovered Sarah's phone vibrating on the kitchen counter while she was showering. Usually, I would not have given it second consideration, but something drove me to investigate. Kevin's message lighted the screen. Had a fantastic time at the party. Really looking forward seeing you once more. My heart dropped. Kevin would be messaging Sarah in such manner for what reason? By can't wait to see you again. He meant what? It sounded not like a laid-back conversation among friends. I became curious as well as angry. Against better judgment, I unlocked her phone. She had told me years ago her passcode, never anticipating I would use it. What I discovered validated my most worst worries. Plans to meet together without my knowledge, inside jokes and flirty comments abound in their conversation record. Though they were not direct, the tone was indisputable. Their concealing of anything was not innocent. I turned off the phone and settled back, my head whirling. Dealing with Sarah right away seems overly hasty. I had to compile more data in order to be quite sure before I acted. But in what manner? The next day, I made the decision to pay Kevin an unexpected visit. I drove to Kevin's flat telling Sarah I was running errands. He seemed startled but not scared as he opened the door. We spoke for some time, but I couldn't get rid of the impression that he was using too cautious language. His often laid-back attitude gave way to a faint tightness, as though he were hiding something. I was more resolved than ever to find the truth as I was leaving his flat. I couldn't allow this continue anymore. Should they be betraying me, I had to call it out. I also understood, though, that facing them without strong evidence may backfire. I needed a strategy quickly and definitely. Over the next several days, Sarah and I developed increasing conflict. She felt lost, her normal friend replaced with a coldness from far away. She would be grinning at her phone or excuse herself to answer calls in another room. Every instant bit my confidence, yet also made me more sure something was happening. One evening I chose to test her. "Kevin's been acting weird lately," I stated casually over dinner. "Have you observed anything?" Sarah paused just long enough to shake her head. "No, not exactly." "Why?" Watching her intently, I said, "Just a feeling." She turned away from me, concentrated on her meal. Her response revealed a great deal. That evening I developed a strategy. Should they be meeting in secret, I had to capture them right in action. I would follow Sarah when she indicated she was leaving, or Kevin when he claimed he was busy. Before I could face them, I needed certain evidence. My chance arrived before everyone expected. 2 days later, Sarah informed me she had an evening work meeting. Her tone seemed planned, and her reasoning was nebulous. As she left the home, I feigned to believe her and wished her a nice evening. 10 minutes later, I reached for my keys and started trailing her. She drove across town to a calm, elegant area instead of headed toward her office. Her parking in front of Kevin's apartment building validated my assumptions. As I saw her get out of the car and approach his door, my heart thumping, Kevin pulled her inside nearly right away. Sitting there in my car, I felt grief mixed with resentment. My darkest worries had realized themselves, but just now I wasn't going to face them. Rather, I resolved to compile further proof. I recorded the time and snapped pictures of her automobile left outdoors. Before I acted, I required an airtight case. The following several weeks were misery. I carried on behaving as though nothing was unusual while surreptitiously gathering proof. To capture any interactions they could have at our place, I set up a little camera in our living room under the cover of a clock. Every chance I got, I also watched Sarah's phone, storing screenshots of their chats to a secret folder on my laptop. I had what I required by the time I felt ready to face them, but I wanted no private encounter. I wanted them to carry the weight of their treachery before everyone who counted. And how better to accomplish it than to present them at an event among our closest friends and relatives? Inspired by a laid-back celebration of a recent promotion at work, I made the decision to throw still another party. Unaware of my actual goals, Sarah appeared thrilled about the notion. Kevin was invited naturally as well. The stage was ready for the last disclosure. The day the party was scheduled arrived, and I was torn with excitement and fear. This was about recovering my dignity and divorcing their betrayal, not only about exposing Sarah and Kevin. I had practiced my phrases and painstakingly ready everything. Arriving guests brought joy and conversation into our house. Sarah was in her element, always charming everyone. Kevin showed there soon afterward, sloppily merging into the throng as though nothing was wrong. Seeing how effortlessly they interacted strengthened my will. The dusk developed, and I watched for the ideal moment. I wanted to avoid creating a scene too early and running the party off course before everyone had arrived. Rather, I interacted with the visitors, hiding my inner conflict with kind grins and light conversation. At last, I felt it was appropriate as dessert was being presented. Tapping my glass to call everyone's attention, I got up. The room stilled, and everyone turned to see me. Totally blind to what was going to happen, Sarah stared at me with an inquisitive grin. "First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," I said, my voice firm despite the fury screaming inside me. Having all of you here to celebrate with us means a great deal, but I have something really significant to discuss. Paused, I looked about the room. My eyes turned first to Sarah, who appeared slightly uncomfortable now, then to Kevin, who was leisurely drinking his drink. This evening is not only about honoring my promotion, I said. It's also about honesty and trust, values supposed to be the basis of any relationship. The room was quiet, the anxiety evident. I grabbed my laptop from the table next by her and hooked it to the TV. I think it's only fair to address it here, in front of those closest to us. I recently found something that's been really weighing heavily on me. Kevin moved uneasily in his seat. Sarah's face became white. Opening the folder with the proof, I started showing screenshots of their chats, pictures of Sarah's car outside Kevin's apartment, and video clips from the concealed camera. The room gasped and muttered when the truth showed up on the screen. Turning to face her, "Sarah," I continued, "you've betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. And Kevin, you, my supposed best friend, have done the unimaginable." "How could one?" Sarah stuttered and tears filled her eyes. I can clarify." But I allowed her no more. "Save it," I murmured with a chilly air. "The evidence speaks for itself. Nothing you say will help to defend what you have done." Kevin sprang to his feet, seeking to defile the circumstances. "Look, Guy, this is not what it appears to be." "Don't offend my intelligence," I said quickly. "You both made decisions and now you have to live with the results." The room reflected amazement mixed with indignation. Friends and relatives showed their incredulity. Some even personally challenged Sarah and Kevin. I experienced an unusual sensation of relaxation, as though a weight had been taken off my shoulders. At last, I spoke to the room. "Thanks for everybody showing up tonight. Though I regret it had to end this way, I couldn't let this treachery go unpackled. Regarding Sarah and Kevin, I would advise it would be better for you both to go. Their humiliation and exposure left them. The party was short-lived, but the support of my actual friends and relatives was much sought for. It let me realize that I wasn't alone, even in the worst of times." Sitting in the peace of my house that evening, I thought back on all that had occurred. Though the betrayal stung, the confrontation was very vital. This time, with those who really earned it, it was the first step toward healing and reconstruction of my life, based on honesty and trust. And so, even if my birthday had become a memorable horror, it also became the day I retrieved my strength and began again.